Hey, Rick Creighton here. I'd like to go over something that I like to call the Great Delusion. If you notice in the Bible, they say in those days a great delusion shall befall them. My question is, has it already started? What is this Great Delusion? Did you notice the media has been going crazy the last few years? Shows like Ancient Aliens, Finding Giants, UFO shows galore, and a whirlwind of conspiracy theorists coming up with a zillion other things going wrong. Many of these things are true. Most are out there in Neverland, though. They're made-up concoctions. There's information, and then there's a whole lot of disinformation. Have you been confused by all this? I know a lot of people are. A lot of people are really lost with all this. Anyways, nobody knows what to worry about anymore. The amount of information out there is so overwhelming. Part of the coming delusion, which has already started at a small level. So what about now? What about this Great Delusion? You look at the shows going into the ancient civilizations and cultures. They throw around the word gods, and I say gods with a little g, as some of the other people out there is using. Just that way it doesn't give them value, because they're really not gods. They say they're coming back. They say that they are the creators. I mean, they're actually going back and saying these ancient aliens are the creators, which is way out there. It's not real. That they were playing with the genome of early man. They try to give proof of these antediluvian, meaning pre-flood great cultures, which, yeah, there were some great cultures back there in the pre-flood times. And that was, the old Nephilim and the Raphaim and all these weird groups. But they weren't gods. But, like I said, they're saying these are the ancient creators. So here are some highlights of things you're probably hearing. Remember, you're being desensitized, so when it all comes to pass, you'll be pre-programmed to believe the lie. Some of the highlights of this information, this reprogramming, they're this, and many of these are true. Many are out there. But you hear of ancient aliens, watchers, Nephilim, Anunnaki, the Raphaim, etc., as far as these ancient beings. Then you've got these megalithic structures. I mean, some of these things, they get these stones that are 20 million pounds. They can't move them today. They move these things 50 miles inland, built structures to them. They're cut to perfect sizes. It's just amazing, and we couldn't replicate this today. So, that's true. Then you hear about hybrid beings, manimals, etc. I mean, go look at the Egyptian, Greek, and Hindu examples of some of these. They talk about satyrs and all these weird things. And that's the ancients playing with the genome. So, and you'll see a lot about this on a lot of those shows. But like I said, a lot of it's misleading. Even though they may have done this, they're going to try and confuse you and make you think that these were the old gods. But now they're finding pyramids all over the world. I mean, some of these things are massive. They're finding them in Bosnia. They're finding them in just South America and North America. They're finding them even over in China. It's amazing. Then there's other things going on. You hear about the giants, the ancient giants. I mean, they say some of these are as big as cedar trees if you read in the Bible. That's all pretty amazing. But the really curious part of that is, where are all these bones going? Because they dig up all these bones in the Smithsonian and these other places. They kind of scurry them away. So they want to keep them out of the public's eye. Now, you've got hear about all these ancient alien, not ancient, but all these alien abductions. Insanely enough, there's a ridiculously large number of the people claiming this. So then you hear about Nibiru, or Planet X, or Wormwood, the Destroyer, the Phoenix, the Great Dragon. They're all the same planet that they're talking about, that same planetary system, different cultures. And I think this is after Babel, when they confuse the tongues, because they're all talking about the same thing. They're just calling it different things. I mean, that's another part of the highlights. Then disclosure is this is the one that you got to worry about. They say disclosure is coming soon. They're going to, this is the key to the beginning of the delusion. This is when they're going to announce that, they're back. And there's so much more. But this is, like I said, this is a lot of the highlights. So now the issue is this. You listen to how these guys on these shows, and they're all over the internet, they're on the TV, they're all pitching this. They say we are created. They, in their words, re-engineered by the prior group, the little g group, meaning the fallen ones. So they're trying to say the fallen ones created us. Now, a quick note before I move on. Now, these guys are out of their minds. That little G group, they're not the creator, because they themselves were created by God, by Yahweh and Jesus Yahushua. So now you may start to notice the news everywhere that they're saying disclosure's coming soon. The ancients are returning. And, it subtly started on a high level with Ronald Reagan when he said, if an ancient alien force would to come, and the nations of the world would have to unite to fight against this group. I mean, that was about, 20 some odd years ago, 30 years ago? But that was just kind of like they're putting little feeders out there. Yeah, I mean, just watch the news. They're talking about all these planets they're finding that can have, handle life, all these different things. They're kind of like pre-programming us. Anyways, disclosure, which is the announcement that the ancients are here, or aliens, they call it the same thing, saying that they are the creators. That is really the Great Delusion. Whether it's mock or real, mock is a whole different story. It is the beginning of the door for the man of perdition, better known as the Antichrist. He had to initially bring peace. Once he brings peace, then his grip on power is going to be strong, and that's when it's going to happen. That's when he'll be standing where he should not be standing, claiming what he should not be claiming to be God. That is the Great Delusion when when they kind of put this all out there and that happens. So that's what I really see as a great possibility of the Great Delusion. Now, as far as we can get some basic sites of, basically pieces of info on this. Now, there's a lot of clarification in the Bible, in books like the Book of Enoch, as a starting point, which tells the story of the fallen ones, from the Genesis 6 account. I mean, Genesis 6 is pretty interesting. Then you get Jubilees, which is not, that's not biblical, but that is like that's an old, removed biblical text talking about this. People really have to be careful. In Scripture, it says a great delusion shall befall them. Again, thinking they're coming back. So I'm going to just, read this Genesis 6 thing really quick. Now, this is out of the King James Version. Genesis 6:1, he says, "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them as wives, all of which they chose." That's pretty interesting, isn't it? So, that's right in Genesis 6. And that's when the Lord says, "My spirit shall not always reside with man, because he is also fleshly. Yet his days shall be 120. So that's when they numbered him. Then the next thing it says, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. Now, also after that, that's after the flood. So that's interesting. When the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which are of old, which are of renown. So I'm not going to finish off the Genesis 6, but if you listen to that, that's when they're starting to talk about all these ancient, quote-unquote, gods, which are not gods. They're basically the offspring of this mixing. So, again, remember, they're not gods. They're just created beings. And, yeah, they were really strong and had some, incredible attributes. But they were kind of like just a breakup of what's good. Anyways, so if you look at it like this, the old religions, you're going to see the Greek religions, the Viking religions, the Hindu religions, they all have similar stories. These were the old ones, to us. Basically, you got Zeus and Apollo, as a couple of examples. Then there were the demigods. Now, Zeus and Apollo, that would be, what they're calling like the fallen ones. Then the demigods, such as Hercules, Thor, Atlas, that's the mixture, the children of the fallen ones, that mixed with the women of man. You can go read these old stories from these old cultures, and they talk about it. So and like I said, it's not just one culture, it's a lot of cultures, and they're all the same stories. So a lot of these people are the same people. It's just pretty amazing. Anyways, the Book of Enoch goes into this in great detail, talking about the watchers coming down to Mount Hermon and begetting wives and bearing children, teaching man a lot of forbidden knowledge. It names a lot of the leaders of the group of fallen angels. It names each one of the leaders of that fallen group. And that was just one incursion they're talking about there. But those are just really the basics. So, anyways, now, there's a lot of available knowledge on this, but it's important for you not to really get all caught up in this, because this stuff isn't really important. You don't need to know this, but what you need to know, the only piece you need to know about it, if you see them saying something's going on, it's not what it seems. They're going to try and confuse people and make them think it's something it's not. So it's just important, to know the basics on this, so when you see it and hear about it, that you're not going to be swayed to believe that, there's something greater than they are. They'll try and downplay the existence of the true creator. Now, this info is really overwhelming for a lot of people. They'll think we're nuts. But you'll find out there's a lot of solid people that really understand this, and they go in great detail. But anyways, it gets really, really deep. There's some absolutely amazing topics. You need to take baby steps, though, in the learning process if you really want to start getting the basics and a handle on this. Anyways, there are certain keys, though, that when you get one, these are like Rosetta keystones, like Genesis 6 that I just talked about, also the book of Enoch. You go back after reading these things and you go back to the Bible, and all of a sudden the Bible jumps to life. You see it differently. It's a lot more than you can imagine. You'll see why after the Exodus they had wiped out all the inhabitants, as they were of this corrupted seed line. And then in Deuteronomy 1 and 2, it says, I will send an angel before thee, and I will drive out the Canaanite, the Amorite, the Hittite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, and the Jebusite. All these ites. They're not, God's clearing them out of there for them, because He doesn't want, that seed line to interact and mess it up again. God, go back and look at Noah. Noah was of a clean seed line. Anyways, then you go to Genesis 3. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It will bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. He shall bruise his heel. It's just, so there you go, talking about the seed lines fighting again, and not interacting right. Then, each time you get a new key, you go back again, read all the pieces of the puzzle, and all of a sudden the picture gets much more clear. It's like you get this puzzle and all these pictures come and you start seeing something, an image. You're like, hey, wait a minute, this stuff is real. This is amazing. And everything looks again. So each time you go back and read the Bible, when you get more of these things, it's like a clear picture. It's really, really exciting. So, anyways, and the funny thing is, you look at these other guys that were poo-pooing it. It's just amazing. So, anyways, even though all this stuff is really exciting info, remember to keep your foundations, such as accepting Jesus as Lord for salvation and forgiveness. He is the gateway to the Father. Don't get overly caught up in it unless you feel God is drawing you to learn about all this stuff. To help others through the Great Delusion. There's a lot of twisted up truth out there, so you got to be careful. Like people that look into this stuff, they can get thrown off course so easily because there's a lot of disinformation. So you just really need to make sure the Holy Spirit keeps you on course and does not allow the disinformation to mislead you. There is a hierarchy out there. The old bloodlines, crazy as it may sound. Now, they didn't want this information out. The people would look, think of this, that the people would be taken to the slaughter like a sheep. Now they, the Luciferians, the old bloodlines, they really don't care anymore because the info is out there. They can't stop it from being out. It's readily available. And guess what? Everybody doesn't pay attention to it, so they just keep walking the wide path. They're walking to the slaughter. Now, so the funny thing is now, all these people, the Luciferians, the hierarchy, they're out there. They're following the works of some of the people that are really studying this stuff, and they're learning stuff from us now. It's amazing. Before they didn't want it out because they didn't want anybody to know. Now they go and try and figure out, hey, wow, these guys are really informed. So it's pretty sad. Anyways, did you ever notice the old lines of kings, in the royals? They didn't want their children to marry outside the royal bloodlines. Did you notice that? Now, they couldn't marry the commoners, only the royal bloodlines. Why is that? Well, that's so they didn't pollute the bloodlines. And we thought they were just a bunch of snobs. But there was a lot more to it than that. Basically, they really believed they had ancient bloodlines of those fallen ones that were mixed with the seed line of the Adamic line of women. That's from the Genesis 6 account and other incursions. So it's just pretty crazy, because I never could figure that out. Like, gee, man, these guys are really snobs. But they're not. They wanted to keep that seed line intact, which is kind of a little bizarre. But anyways, so they think they're on this big power trip. So you need to get all that, you basically need to get that word out when you finally do see this craziness spreading. Let those that you see that are being confused, know the real truth. And that this information, about these entities has been made known, through many scriptures. They were warned. The corruption of the Adamic bloodline, that's been Satan's way to get out his frustration. It happened in the antediluvian world, sadism, all the weird mixing of genes. The Bible said about all the flesh being corrupted. Now, think of all, these weird alien abduction stories. Notice they're all talking about reproductive components. Yeah, the mixing up the gene pool again. Go figure that one out. So, think of this. How many types of angels are there? We know of a few. You get the cherubim, the seraphim, the thrones, the dominions, the powers, principalities, angels, archangels. So there's a lot of different types of angels out there, and these are all God's creations. Now think of this. Each one of these is a different race of separate beings. So that's pretty cool. It's like almost like different worlds, different beings. So when we hear angels, it kind of like throws a different twist on it. These are all God's creations, just like we are. So, this is pretty exciting stuff, I think. I don't know about you. So think of how great our God is. We hear of the seven heavens. Some are in our plane of existence, from the firmament on upward. Could the inner planets be a couple of these heavens? And then you go from the tangible to the intangible as we go through the higher heavens, from material to interdimensional to spiritual, all the way up to, the top heaven where the Holy Trinity, they reside and they oversee everything from. Now, also, you got all these different things going on, and people don't realize there's a difference between a demon and a fallen angel. In the Genesis 6 account, I keep going back there because it's a great place to kind of like fill people in. On that first incursion, you see the offspring of the Nephilim and the giants. Basically, the spirits of these entities had no estate. They had nowhere to go when they died. They didn't have a home because they weren't meant to be. So they became demons. So there is a difference between a fallen angel and a demon. Some of these were chained up to be released in the last days, if you read the Bible. And a small portion was allowed to wander, until the end times and final judgment. These guys are the troublemakers that you see causing all the weird stuff. You see all these movies, poltergeists and everything. That's the disembodied ones. Now, in the natural, what our guys are doing, I say our, like the scientists, you also have got things like CERN. Go look up CERN. That's basically the Hadron Collider. And they got a large statue of Shiva out there. That's the Indian creation deity with all the arms. It's sitting in a circle. And, they get a plaque commemorating that place to that. And that, quote-unquote, other fallen angel, what do you call it? That's supposedly, the creator of destruction and creation. So they're doing some really strange things with that. They admit it. The scientists out there, they said they're trying to recreate a mini version of the Big Bang. They shut this thing down for a couple of years and just opened it about a month ago. With over 100 times more power, because they wanted more power to do more things. Attempting to recreate Babel and open portals, and gateways. Yeah, what are these guys thinking? As crazy as it sounds, read the Bible and it talks about gates, gates and portals. Go on, read. This is funny stuff, man. Go read up on what the scientists running through this said recently. They say they are actually trying to open up gateways to other dimensions. This is their scientists saying it. I mean, not us quacks out here. So, anyways, if you look up, there's a couple references in the Bible. I mean, there's a ton. But it says, in Psalms 24, lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of Glory may come in. Then you got Jacob's ladder, then you get the gates of hell, and all these, then the pool, the pit where the key was locked up. Just pretty amazing stuff again. So anyways, now they talk about dark matter, unseen matter, that it equates to about a quarter of the mass of the universe. I mean, think of that, 25% of the mass of the universe. We look out there and it's all space and little dots. So what's all this matter? I mean, they say the tangible world equates to about 5% of all matter. Now think of this. They can actually see the gravitational effect on the planets from all this quote-unquote dark matter. So that means there's a lot of matter right around us, like just right in our face. More mass than the planet we're in. So could these gateways lead to a real place? They call it interdimensional. Really neat things to explore, I think. But time is really short to be playing around looking at these theories, so we got to deal with the facts and what's going on. I mean, the global economy is in a serious state. Watch how strong the Chinese yuan is going to become. I mean, I think it's going to... They're talking about some amazing things that are going to happen with that, and that's going to be an accepted currency. And if that happens, that's going to destabilize our currency and a lot of other currencies and throw the world into an economic frenzy. And they're talking about this September, formally putting it up again to become a recognized currency, a reserve currency, that is. So that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. So what's going to end up happening? All this chaos that's going to be coming, political, social, economic instability in all these countries. It's going to be the welcome wagon for the quote-unquote the man with a plan, the man of perdition, the man that can bring peace and fix it all. Yeah, good luck. Anyways, that's when the trouble really begins. It would all start out as peace. Everyone's going to be saying, finally, he brings peace. That's when this eerie sense of foreboding should really grip your soul. Now, the enemy will have basically entered the final stage of the unfolding of prophecy. I really hope the rapture is for more than 144,000, but it's going to be a unique ride. I mean, there's so much to learn. But again, don't get caught, really don't get caught up in looking, worrying about everything. You just have to be focused. Even if we suffer and lose our lives here, if your heart is with God, you will be at peace through all this insanity. Just read Psalm 91. Though 1,000 fall at your side, 10,000 at your right, near you it shall not come. And even if it does, Jesus suffered. So we better than the master. No. So just keep up the good fight. Be careful not to get swayed. Stay strong in your faith. God is great and Jesus will triumph through all this. We're all at just the beginning of a great epic of time. I mean, just really cool stuff. Now this is a precious time period. We really get distracted. There's so much noise out there. Your mind never has peace. Most people, they're just inundated with music all the time, TV going, just constant noise. You can't really sit back and, just take it in. It's just, things are going all day and night sometimes to some people. It just distracts you. It unsettles your inner peace. It doesn't allow your mind to rest. You can't get into the deep REM sleep and be filled with these amazing dreams. These amazing lucid dreams, or others, just peace and, the ability to grow. So, or just feel like you had an amazing rest, so you wake up with a clear mind. Now even games are on your phone. These things keep, kids and people going for hours every day. They don't have a second to reflect. I'm not saying all these are bad, but your mind does need a break to recharge. Then we have interactive gadgets like the internet and social media. Imagine how even texting is a constant distraction. Although a lot of these like interactive things are really a convenience, and some of it's truly necessary. But too much causes accidents, it disrupts your family and all crazy things. I'm just going to ask you this. Now, can you imagine being on the mighty judgment seat of God? You're going through your personal cause, like, please forgive me, I'm sorry. Saying, and all of a sudden, bzz, bzz, oh, hey, God, wait a minute. I just get this text. Oh, wow. Man, I got to answer this. Give me 1 sec. Susie just sent me the photo of her new nails. Come on, please. This is like, it's too much. But anyways, you need some peace. You really need some peace and quiet. At least just for a few minutes every day. Where you can put yourself in a place just to talk and rest in Him. This quiet time is such a blessing, in this hectic world. So anyways, I'll get off that subject. But, a lot of people, they're also trying to find themselves. They had a lot of things happen in their past that makes them nervous to approach God, in Jesus. They feel like God is too powerful to approach, and that they may be in a state of sin. And probably, we all sin. If none of us sinned, Jesus wouldn't have to die. But that's part of like His greatness. Anyways, I want you to see it from a different perspective. If somebody feels scared to go to God, I feel, this is my thought. I feel God is always there. He's always in the same spot. He never moves. Well, not he moves, but I'm saying, in this degree. So God is always right here. He never changes. He's always loving. Yeah, He has wrath, but He prefers mercy, and you as creation, His child. He created you for life, not death. He's always constant, never moving. So, I feel that we're either moving towards Him, meaning we're facing Him, or we're turned our backs to Him and we're walking away from Him. So if we're walking away from Him, we see darkness. We have no hope. It's not good. So God remains in the same place. So we're either walking towards Him or away from Him. Sometimes running in either direction. Running either away or towards Him. So that's really kind of how I see it. So while you're facing away from Him, you begin to have these doubts. You get scared. You're scared to turn your gaze in His direction. Remember, Jesus came to redeem us and unite us to His Father. So why don't you try this? So with contrite confidence, just stop. Be at peace for a second. Take a second and say, Jesus, forgive me. And reunite me to your Father. Now you can slowly turn around back towards that light, and face your Lord and His Father. Because with a humble, contrite heart, you ask Him to save you. You now begin to get a little courage to pick your gaze up off the ground towards Him. You slowly raise your head, and all you perceive is this great love and forgiveness. Now you start running back to Him with a joyful heart and open arms. This is your destiny. This is where you belong. All this earthly grief is just a proving ground. Heaven is where your home is. So God chose, now this is important. God chose the spirit of you and myself to be placed in our bodies at this point in time to be part of this triumph. We could have been born 3,000 years ago. He put us here now. Our spirit was in existence with Him. So this is when our time was to be put here. So we're in some absolutely amazing times. Yeah, they'll be hard. There will be issues. But remember, remember who you are called to be. I'd really like you to reflect on what I just said. This is like extremely deep and meaningful. There's a whole lot to learn about this. I'm not really capable of, really expressing how profoundly deep this is. You have a special name, that was given to you by God. Not your earthly name, but actually a name given to you by God. So when He calls you, you'll hear it, you'll know it. Some of you have very special tasks. Think of this. Jeremiah 1, before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet to the nations. That's just one thing, and that's not, that's just one individual. But There's so many things. Now, we're born and placed here at this time and place for a reason only known to God. So take the talents He gave you and use them wisely. Pray that He gives you the strength, and the wisdom to fulfill your role, task that He placed you here for and this time for. It may be as simple as a kind word to somebody. You don't know. Or it may be some basic tasks in your everyday life, just taking care of your family, bringing your family up right. For others, it may be some great, grandiose project. Everybody has a different calling and a different task. All this, you do all this while by trying to be a reflection, of His love and kindness to all. That's so important. So, we will be where we need to be when we are called to task. Think of that. Think of what I just said. We'll be where we need to be when we are called to task. So stay alert. For the enemy who goes around like a roaring lion and seeks who he can destroy. Don't get heavily caught up in these earthly things. Our time is really getting short. Pretty soon, people will start to realize that the statement, time is getting short, it's not just a broken record repeating itself. So ask God, basically to help you complete your task. Remember, that while you're in this flesh body, you have more opportunity to grow because we're currently caught up in our fallen nature. So in this state of being, we're encased in this fleshly body. We don't see everything clearly. Like if we were spiritual, we see everything. But we're caught up. We can only see, certain points, certain spectrums of like the rainbow and everything. We can't see or know everything going on around us. So we're really in a limited state. So, we actually have a time to grow. I'm not trying to, basically I'm not trying to use outside, of main scripture. All the info I'm trying to use from main scripture, except for the book of Enoch. That's kind of, in some cultures they call that scripture. I think that was an old removed book, but the Bible does refer to Enoch a couple times. But I'm trying to use, this one instance from a book. I'm not going to mention it here, so please don't take this as truth or accurate, just as reference. This ancient book said that Jesus made a statement. And he said this, I am amazed at how this great wealth has made its home in this poverty. So this great wealth being our spirit, and this poverty is our flesh. So, it's like I said, it's really amazing how great our God is. So, things we do more right now while we're in the flesh, they're so powerful. It's an opportunity to grow in wonderful ways, in which we won't have that opportunity for after this life. This means, it's a tremendous opportunity for us to grow spiritually and get closer to our God. So use this time wisely. And may God bless you all. I really thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from it. And if you think this helped you, and if you know of any people you think this could help, because this Great Delusion is coming. Whether we want to admit it or not, refer this video out to a few people so it can go viral. You could think of how many people you can help. If it helped you, do you know any people that really could use this? And, would they know any people? So if this gets out there, think of that. Somebody has this weird puppy or this cute little kitten, and the thing gets like 10 million hits. So if you were to refer this out to like 5, 10, 15 people, and this helped them, and then they did it to a few people and it duplicated a few levels, your actions could affect tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of people. And it's just like a quick little video. But if you affect them, how many souls could you help? So please pray for me, and I'm going to pray for you all. And I thank you all for your time. God bless.